Good morning, good afternoon. May I ask that we start sitting down? We're scheduled to start at 1:00 sharp. So can I ask that we start sitting down as we enjoy the drums? Please, let's come in and sit down. We can't afford to be out of time. Yeah, carry on.
Video, avakala amakwelo, welcoming our dignitaries, legends, and esteemed guests in our beautiful country where diverse people unite. You have landed and touched the soil where the great warrior King Shaka Zulu ruled. Isilo, Ibubesi, Ingonyama, the royal kingdom rose. Queen Nandi, the mother of the king Shaka Zulu, modeled modesty on the ramp of life. With her beautiful and enduring countenance, socio-economic issues, and a story for another day. But I urge you to feel her love. The mother city, the delegates from Cape Town are here today to give you the nurturing bosom and cover you with the embrace of motherly love while you remain besotted at her beauty, the city's beauty. Hlabela ingoma ifike kwanongoma and salute King Goodwill Zwelithini kaBhekuzulu ubona nje ke ndiswela intsebe ngoba ngendikhathela kuni zinkosi zam zomthonyama ndithi bayethe ndabezitha wena wendlovu. We salute the traditional leaders adorned in their leopard skins. Just like the leopards, they growl to protect the sound environmental practices that their forefathers passed to them from generations to generations. Sithi huntu kaloku nakuni maqala bonqondo ngokuwela imilambo nelwandle nindande njengeenkonjane ukuze nizimase lo msitho namhlanje. Ungqongqoshe wethu wezemvelo Mvelukazi nosodolophu wethu intombi yamawodi sithi amaqobokazana ngalale endleleni uboyazi ukuba kunyembelekile zenihambe ke mbewu zesizalo se-Africa. Tell the world we have received this prophetic vision of hope to transform our world, the Sustainable Development Goals, the Vision 2030, just like we had already embraced the National Development Plan, Vision 2020. We welcome you to the home of the Nobel Peace Prize winner, Umadiba, Unqolomsila, Uyemyem. We are a miracle rainbow nation. We are red, yellow, orange, yellow, blue, indigo, violet. We shall never be in darkness. Because when each of the colors do not shine as bright, the other shall bring its light until the doomed one gets its sparkle back. We shall no longer be lost in protocols unobserved. We are just enough. We have broken free from the political chains. We will not be ravished by economic disparity. We shall break free from the chains of social injustice. We are free indeed, and we welcome you. Let us all not bite the hand that feeds us, our environment. Yeah, 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 yeah,
We are too blind to see, even if one cannot see. But praises go to our God, Yahweh, the creator of this special ball called Earth.
Oh, what a special vessel of life and nature. A special green composite ball firstly covered with moss. A ball that is specially decorated by fan, baobab, mountains, valleys, and ocean life. The first home of small mammals, insects, and birds. The significant process of photosynthesis taking place now and since from the ancient times. The everlasting green color of life. Green.
Green. Keep the forest green. Keep the sky and the ocean blue. Blue and green result in vapor and rain. Oh, what a special origin that brings about the coolest space. Cool.
Deforestation and burning of fossil fuels is the right violation of the Most High. That is the right violation of his intellectual property.
Let's reinstate the state of this special ball called Earth. One tide.
One tree. One house. One garden.
Let's preserve the special vessel of life and nature.
Now, it is dented by urbanization and tainted by mining. The toxic gases of carbon monoxide, the depletion of ozone layer up in the sky, the causes of acid rain and global warming, the human causes of soil salinity and soil degradation.
Look at me. Nevertheless, we still have hope. We still have hope. So let this special ball called Earth now get decorated by fruits, vegetables, as organic crops.
Rainforests, savannas, animals, good people and insects. The cooling forces of fresh air from the valleys up to the summits of the highest mountains.
Praises go to our God, the creator of this special ball called Earth, Yahweh. Abangoni, Sizwe Sika Adam. We have gathered here today to give praises to our God, Yahweh. Yeah, we have gathered here to give praises to our God, Yahweh. Anyway, my dearest people of heaven, I would like to show my gratitude to all of you. Umsebenzi wokushwama uhambe kahle kakhulu. The faces of environmental success.
Sustainable Development Goals. One life, one earth.
Thank you very much. Can you give another round of applause to Dim Deb? May I also ask that we do it in the African fashion where we ululate? Where are the ladies? Thank you very much. At this stage, I'd like to call on our speakers for the day to come and take their seats in front before we proceed.
Welcome to the Durban ICC, where the world meets Africa. As a leading world-class events facility, we make your safety our #1 priority. Please give us your attention for a few minutes to take you through some important health and safety information. As the Durban ICC is a public space, please remember to keep your personal belongings safe and with you at all times. We have many bathrooms for you to use around the venue. They are clearly marked in the foyer and concourse areas. The Durban ICC is a smoke-free building, but we do have clearly marked smoking zones outside the main entrance and in the courtyards opposite the concourse. Please make use of these areas and the ashtrays provided when you smoke. In the event of a medical emergency, please dial the emergency number 031 360 1007 for assistance. The Durban ICC has developed a very simple emergency evacuation plan that everyone must be familiar with. Our staff are specially trained and will be there to assist you in following this plan. In the event of an evacuation, an announcement will be made to leave the venue. Please remain calm and walk swiftly to the nearest emergency exit in the concourse area. These exit doors are clearly marked. Security guards and the marshals will also help direct you out of the building. Please do not use any lifts or escalators in the event of an emergency. Once outside, you will be directed to the nearest assembly point by the marshals for your safety. Please wait at the assembly point until the venue has been cleared and the marshal deems it safe for you to return to your seats. Thank you for your time and enjoy this event.
Thank you. You don't have to clap for that. Good afternoon, everybody. The Honorable Judge L.B. Sachs, keynote speakers, Executive Director of IAIA, Ms. Jill Baker, President and President-elect of IAIA, past presidents, board members, our sponsors and partners, and most importantly, our delegates from all over the world. I quote, "So let me begin. I am an African. I owe my being to the hills and the valleys, the mountains and the glades, the rivers, the deserts, the trees, the flowers, the seas, and the ever-changing seasons that define the face of our native land. My body has frozen in our frosts and in our latter-day snows. It has thawed in the warmth of our sunshine and melted in the heat of the midday sun. The crack and the rumble of the summer thunders, lashed by startling lightning, have been a cause both of trembling and of hope. The fragrances of nature have been as pleasant to us as the sight of the wild blooms of the citizens of the field. The dramatic shapes of the Drakensberg, the soil-colored waters of the Likoa, Igili, Notugela, and the sands of the Kgalagadi have all been panels of the set on the natural stage on which we act out the foolish deeds of the theater of our day. At times and in fear, I've wondered whether I should conceal equal citizenship to our country to the leopard and the lion, the elephant and the springbok, the hyena, the black mamba, and the pestilential mosquito. My mind and my knowledge of myself is formed by the victories that are jewels in our African crown. The victories we earned from Isandlwana to Khartoum, as Ethiopians and as the Ashanti of Ghana and the Berbers of the desert. Whatever the setbacks of the moment, nothing can stop us now. Whatever the difficulties, Africa shall be at peace. However improbable it may sound to the skeptics, Africa will prosper. Whoever we may be, whatever our immediate interest, however much we carry baggage from our past, however much we have been caught by the fashion of cynicism and the loss of faith in the capacity of the people, let us err today and say, nothing can stop us now, unquote. It gives me great pleasure and a sense of jubilation to be standing here and welcoming you to the 37th IAIA conference. This milestone is actually very close to my heart, and it has not been an easy one to achieve. I was attending an annual general meeting in Florence, in Italy, when it was announced that Canada would be hosting the 2017 conference in Montreal. I did not understand why Canada was hosting again, because it had just hosted Calgary 2 years before. In my mind, I was thinking, bloody Canadians. I was prompted to raise my hand and ask, when is it time for Africa? And today, I stand proud here to say, it is finally time for Africa. And it must be noted that it is our nature as Africa to host spectacular conferences, so expect nothing less. Africa continues to be a passion of mine, and as a newly elected IAA board member, I expect you to also clap here. I will strongly advocate in our 5-year strategic plan that at least 2 conferences in the next 5 years are hosted in Africa. I hope Zambia is listening. Tanzania, Kenya, Nigeria, I hope you are also listening. Alongside England, South Africa is the only other country to host a rugby, soccer, and cricket World Cup. Today, we have added the IAIA conference because it is indeed a World Cup for impact assessment professionals. Coincidentally, Coincidentally, South Africa also celebrates 20 years of the National Environmental Management Act, which has been a key instrument in shaping impact assessment in South Africa. In addition, the Minister of Environmental Affairs has also for the first time appointed a professional association as the sole registration authority for impact assessment practitioners. And this will be a significant step in promoting public interest through the improvement of the quality of environmental assessment practice in South Africa. So this conference has actually come at a very special time in South Africa. Allow me to also share a few interesting facts about our country. South Africa has the most diverse and unique flora kingdom in the world, and 70% of the Cape Flora Kingdom occurs nowhere else on Earth. South Africa's Table Mountain alone has more flower species than England, Wales, Ireland, and Scotland combined. It feels good to say this about our former colonialists. Incredibly, this country is also home to the largest bird, the largest land mammal, the tallest animal, smallest succulent, heaviest flying bird, largest fish, largest antelope, largest tree, fastest land animal, largest reptile, and the smallest mammal. We are also a treasure trove for archaeologists and paleontologists, as we have produced some of the world's oldest and most valuable fossils to date. As beautiful a country as we are also not spared from some of the environmental impacts and challenges that the world is currently experiencing. Water continues to be a major issue in our country, and whenever it rains, we see it as showers of blessings. Mining has and continues to be a significant part of our economy, and that also comes with a number of issues and impacts, which, if not addressed, become cumulative and become detrimental to our own environment. Social economic issues continue to dominate our current affairs, and many are linked to impacts not being addressed adequately. Ban Ki-moon says, saving our planet, lifting people out of poverty, advancing economic growth, these are one and the same fight. We must connect the dots between climate change, water scarcity, energy shortages, global health, food security, and women's empowerment. Solutions to one problem must be solutions for all. This conference is one such platform to engage, share, and most importantly, exchange knowledge and expertise from all sectors. And in closing, I'd also like to read a quotation from Margaret Mead. She says the following: "Never doubt a small group of thoughtful, committed citizens can change the world. Indeed, it's the only thing that ever has." I would like to officially welcome you to Durban, and I hope that you're going to have a very, very South African conference. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Nsako. We were hoping to spare you the cold shower of the health and safety announcement, but we didn't quite manage to succeed there. I'd also just like to add today that it's an absolute thrill for me to stand here and look out over the sea of faces and know that the international conference is finally here in South Africa. It's been such a long time coming, and here we are finally in Durban again. My first and most important duty is to thank each and every one of you for your attendance in this beautiful but complicated country of ours, and for the contributions you will make over the next several days. And over those 4 days, we're going to hear about environmental injustice. And in all probability, we'll hear more than we want to hear. But that is the reality of the world around us. It is my earnest hope that we will hear too about where impact assessment brought about a change that reduced those injustices, and which serve to inspire all of us to take back to the more than 80 different countries that are represented here new ideas and insight that will make impact assessment live up to its full potential of realizing environmental justice in societies in transition. And with that, I'd like to call on our President, Marla, to come and say a few words.
What a packed audience. My friends, my fellow IAIA members, new members, old members, young members, very senior members, welcome one and all. My name is Marla Orenstein, and I am current president of IAIA. And today, I want to talk to you about the elephant in the room. In fact, we have several elephants to talk about. This is the first one. His name is Musiara, and he is 2 years old. He lives at the David Sheldrick Wildlife Trust in Kenya. Musiara is an orphan, and he was rescued by the trust from poachers. IAIA is sponsoring Musiara and several other baby elephants like him. This was made possible by you. Last October, we sent out our member survey and promised to donate $2 to the trust for every response we received. 478 members responded to our survey, which is fantastic, and we donated $956 for the care of Musiara and the other baby elephants. Yeah, good on you. While elephants are important, IAIA's members are too. We hadn't done a survey of our members in about 5 years, and we needed to better understand who our members are and what they value, and we got that information. We now know, for example, that 15% of our members are from Africa, and that's something I want to applaud. We know that 1/4 of our members have been members for less than a year, but another quarter have been members for over 10 years. We learned that 79% of the survey respondents have developed and enhanced their professional relationships through IAIA, and 83% of those relationships have turned into project collaborations or leads on new work. If you want to know more about the survey results, come to the annual general meeting, which is just before lunch on Friday, or you can download it from the website. So baby Musiara is one elephant that I want to talk about. And now the other elephant in the room, our membership numbers. Our conferences are extremely popular with phenomenal attendance, as you can see. We have, I believe it's 975 attendees this year. Yeah. Many people here are long-term members who keep coming back again and again. And in fact, I'd like our long-term members to stand up. So please stand up and wave if you've been to more than one IAIA event before. Let's see it. Thank you. And now let's find out who's here for the first time. So please stand up and wave if this is your first IAIA conference. Thank you. Clearly this meeting is valuable. We have both a high return rate and also lots of new people. But the problem is that the conference is so good that it sometimes overshadows the value of the organization as a whole. 9 years ago, I would have been one of you standing up and waving my shiny new membership card. I was looking to understand what impact assessment really was. I was a freelance epidemiologist doing consulting work, and I really didn't know very much. But what I got out of IAIA was not just that I made a few contacts or heard a few seminars. What I came back with was a sense of community from a diverse and global group of inspiring, effective, collaborative, and supportive colleagues. People like, for example, Francesca Vigliani. Francesca, where are you? There she is. Francesca and I collaborate on projects. Sometimes we compete and bid against one another, but I count her as a good friend and someone I can always turn to for an honest opinion. And then there were people like Ben Cave. Ben, where are you? Either I don't see you or he's not here. There he is in the back. Ben has been pushing us for years to learn from one another about how to improve the quality of impact assessments, and I will also tell you he's a very impressive drinking partner. And at this conference here in Durban, my friend Uzoma Nwankwo is here for the first time. Uzoma, where are you? Oh, there he is in the back. Can everybody say welcome, Uzoma? Told you I'd introduce you to 1,000 people. I convinced him to come down from Nigeria for this because he's at the stage in his professional development where he needs the support and challenge of the people who are here. As Nelson Mandela once said, I like friends who have independent minds because they tend to make you see problems from all angles. And I knew the very first time that I was here that these were the kinds of people that I had met, people to work with, collaborate with, admire, and compete with. These are the people that you are going to meet, and that's why we're here together. This organization doesn't see itself as just a maker of conferences. It's a network. It's a community of professionals working towards a common end. We value our membership so much, and we know that we need you. We need you to stay members over the long term, not just to add to IAIA's coffers, but to add to the community. Because all of you bring unique ideas, unique approaches, unique personalities. And so I'm also pleased to announce that we're making it easier for you to stay a member. Later this year, we'll be changing our membership rates and decreasing them for people in countries with lower economies. Yeah. For people in some countries, such as Uganda, the membership rate starting next year will be cut in half. Yeah. For others, such as South Africa, it will be cut by about 25%. For those of us who are in the more developed economies and see ours go up by a little bit, remember this applause next year. So what I'm asking of you is to enjoy the conference, to get everything out of it that you possibly can, but then after your year is up, stay a member. Renew your membership. Stay involved and contributing to this community. I need you. We will all need you, and we will all be better off for it. That's it from me. I just want to end with a very big thank you both to the organizing committee and to headquarters, who both worked incredibly hard to put on this amazing conference that we're all looking forward to. So thank you all very much, and enjoy.
Our next two speakers are going to get a welcome from the City of Durban, which will be followed by the welcome from the Ministry of Environmental Affairs. Our speaker representing the City of Durban will be Councillor Madlala, and Councillor Madlala will be followed by the Deputy Director General for Legal Authorizations, Compliance and Enforcement, Mr. Isham Abada, to represent the Ministry of Environmental Affairs.
Program directors, Mr. Ntsako Baloyi and Sean O'Payne, thank you very much for welcoming us. Mr. Baloyi, thank you for going out of your way to describe the beauties of our country. IAIA President Mala Orenstein, Executive Director Jill Baker, board members, our special guest, Mr. Albie Sachs, honored guests, ladies and gentlemen, good morning, or is it good day? It is a pleasure and an honor to stand in front of you to welcome you on behalf of the mayor of our city and the close to 4 million people of our city. I would like to extend a special welcome to all the conference delegates to Durban, South Africa's most livable city. I would like to tell you a little bit about the city that I love. Durban is the only metropolitan city in KwaZulu-Natal and therefore a hub of economic activity and tourism. It is a world-class city that boasts everything that you will find in a 21st century city. Durban is a center of world-class sport and international events. It is a shopper's paradise with exceptional shopping malls, precincts, craft markets, street bazaars, etc. It is also a bustling commercial and manufacturing center, connected to the business capitals of the world, and it is built around the busiest port in Africa. I know I will not outdo Mr. Baloyi, but that will be my contribution in describing Durban to you. This conference theme, Environmental Justice in Societies in Transit, speaks directly to the realities that we are grappling with every day as the leadership of this young post-apartheid city. The injustices that was apartheid also meant that the worst of the environmental impacts were suffered by the underprivileged, the marginalized majority who were not benefiting from the economic activities which generated environmental pollution. But those, the poor, the marginalized, are the ones that bear the brunt of the climate change and the events that are associated with it. The city is now in the process of redressing the historical planning that allowed environmental injustices to thrive. It is therefore with a sense of pride that we welcome the international community that has graced our city on such an important theme. I wish all of you the best of your deliberations throughout the conference and hope that you find time to enjoy our hospitality as a city. With those few words, on behalf of the Mayor and the City of Durban, you are welcome, and we wish you fruitful deliberations. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Judge Sachs, President of the IAIA, IAIA members, other distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. It's my privilege to welcome you this afternoon to the International Association of Impact Assessment Conference on behalf of the Minister of Environmental Affairs, Dr. Edna Molewa. She's very saddened by the fact that she cannot be here today. She's tabling the Department of Environmental Affairs budget policy statement in the National Assembly, and that makes it possible for us to attend some of these conferences. It's actually the second time that South Africa is being honored with hosting this important conference. We welcomed the IAIA in 1995 at the dawn of our democracy. And I think it was the 15th International Conference, and now some 22, 23 years later, we are hosting once again. So the relevance of the conference theme, environmental justice in societies in transition, to our South African reality increases that significance even further. And it was also mentioned earlier that it's 20 years, the 20th anniversary for our National Environmental Management Act, our sort of umbrella framework act for environment. The relevance of this conference and the IAIA as an organization can be seen from the steadily increasing attendance. At the 1995 conference, we had about half of the delegates that we have here today, and then we were represented by 30 countries. Today we have a representation from about 80 countries. This conference is very important in the sense that it brings together a mix of professionals from all around the world to advance the science of impact assessment, to develop international and local capacity, and also to anticipate, plan, and manage the consequences of development, and to enhance the quality of life for all. The conference theme, Environmental Justice in Societies in Transition, is actually a tribute to the continued relevance of the organization in the face of ever-changing environmental dynamics. The Department of Environmental Affairs acknowledges the importance of both the International Association for Impact Assessment as well as the South African chapter, which was formally established in 1993. Although it's the mandate of the department to progressively realize every South African's right to a healthy environment and to have that environment protected, we wouldn't be able to do it without the knowledge and support of institutions like the IAIA. We are a developmental state that has embraced the concept of sustainable development. And in pursuing that balance between environmental protection and development, like many other countries, South Africa is continuously reviewing and streamlining its environmental regulatory frameworks. This includes reducing the administrative burden on developers and the state, while also ensuring the highest level of environmental protection and participation within environmental decision-making. Despite our 24 years of democracy, and the massive advances that we've made in this time to ensure a better life for all in South Africa, we're still very much a society in transition. South Africa is one of the most unequal societies globally, and the wealth gap continues to grow. We can even argue that it's premature to talk about environmental justice when we're still struggling with social justice. However, the inclusion in our Bill of Rights of everyone's right to a healthy environment is evidence that South Africa considers social, economic, and environmental justice as the sides of the same coin. You cannot have social justice without economic justice, and you can have neither without environmental justice. The conference topics deal with, among others, issues related to indigenous people and environmental justice, the environmental justice challenges of climate change, mining, industrial development and environmental justice, and public participation and environmental justice. And they are directly relevant to the South African scenario and the implementation of our environmental management regime. I'd like to turn also to the concept of societies in transition once again from a global perspective. The 13th edition of the World Economic Forum's Global Risk Report 2018 lists extreme weather events, natural disasters, failure of climate change mitigation and adaptation, large-scale involuntary migration, and man-made environmental disasters among its top seven global risks in terms of likelihood. With this in mind, I ask the question, is there any society that is not in transition right now? We're having to adapt to new climate change realities of more frequent and increasingly violent extreme weather events, and often desperate attempts to maintain the status quo or even go back in time. And every society is dealing with a transition to a low-carbon future. The reality, in fact, is that every society is in transition. To paraphrase the South African environmental justice principles, our real challenge is to ensure that through this transition, the adverse environmental impacts are not distributed in a manner that unfairly discriminates against any nation, and more particularly nations that are vulnerable and disadvantaged. In closing, I'd like to, on behalf of the Minister, wish you every success with the conference, and I have every faith that your discussions, debate, and deliberations will contribute to a just transition to sustainable development in line with the aspirations of the Global Sustainable Development Goals. Thank you.
I just quickly want to address an omission, and that is just to indicate that the opening plenary is being live streamed around the world. So just to say hello to all the people that are looking at us and enjoying this opening plenary with us, a big shout out to them and welcome to them as well. Without further ado, I'd like to ask Miguel Contino to please come up for the presentation of the IAIA Global Award.
Ladies and gentlemen, dear friends, let me explain you a little bit what is the IAIA Global Award. The Global Award is presented annually to a leading individual or institution that has made a substantial contribution to the practice of impact assessment, management, or policy at a global scale. This is the 17th year this award has been given. The Danish Institute for Human Rights has been selected for the Global Award for developing and improving methodologies, tools, and guidance documents that promote, support, and facilitate human rights impact assessment, and the integration of human rights principles and considerations in other branches of impact assessment. The Danish Institute for Human Rights makes these resources available to the public in multiple languages, and its ethical and professional track record consistently encourages transparency and high standards. It's my pleasure to introduce you to Eva Granby, Deputy Executive Director and Head of the International Division, which will receive the award. Thank you.
Thank you very much. It is really a great honor to be here and receiving this award. And first of all, I would like to thank the IAIA for providing what I would say is an invaluable forum for promoting learning and exchange across different impact assessment fields. The Danish Institute has very much benefited from this, and we've actually been given the opportunity to put human rights higher on the IAIA agenda through annual human rights training and training courses, and also organizing various events with other human rights impact assessment actors at the conferences. And now you're even giving us an award. Thank you very much. Perhaps just a little introduction to the Danish Institute for Human Rights. We are a state institution, independent of the government. We are Denmark's national human rights institution, and there are more than 100 NHRIs, as we call ourselves, globally. These are independent public bodies established by law with the mandate to promote and protect human rights in their countries, both nationally and internationally, including working with the private sector. And we have worked with the private sector for more than 15 years. Actually, the Danish Institute was one of the first organizations to conduct project-level human rights impact assessment targeted at business activities. We have carried out human rights impact assessments in various sectors, but in particular in the extractive industries, food and beverage sector. The gradual maturity of the human rights impact assessment community culminated, you might say, back in 2011, when the UN Guiding Principles on Business and Human Rights were unanimously adopted by the UN Human Rights Council. So the responsibility of business to respect human rights is now an international norm, as well as a standard of expected conduct that applies to all business in all situations, regardless of their side, where they operate, and regardless of the state commitment to human rights. This clarity creates opportunities for considering how human rights can be instrumental in other impact assessment branches, such as environmental, social, health impact assessments at the project level, but also at the company level. A human rights lens to impact assessment can provide us with new insights on topics that might be missed or underanalyzed in standard impact assessment practices, such as a deeper focus on conflict dynamics, workers' rights, supply chains, the responsibility and role of the state actors, the rights of vulnerable groups, not least children. And very importantly, how to provide access to remedy for those left to bear the brunt of impact by business activities, as referred to in this conference theme. Going forward, ensuring a human rights lens, we would like to see that human rights actually are anchored in formal impact assessment requirements of legislators, regulators, and financiers. Currently, environment and social impact assessment legislation do not specifically feature human rights, besides perhaps principles like public participation and gender. Applying a human rights lens might be seen as a troublemaker at first, but in fact, it often turns out to be a troubleshooter. Reflecting further on the theme of this conference, environmental justice, addressing threats of both natural, social, and human environment, and the threat of the growing inequality. This, for me, directly relates to the 2030 Agenda and the common aspiration of leaving no one behind, as well as the common recognition of the crucial role of the business and private investments in achieving sustainable development for all. However, the 2030 Agenda and the 17 SDGs, or Sustainable Development Goals, do not, and in fact cannot, give us specific guidance on the implementation at country or company level. Here I strongly believe that the impact assessment community must play a key role, bringing substance and guidance into how both to address the adverse impact and the positive impacts. In short, bringing accountability into the implementation of the 2030 Agenda in a very instrumental way. If we as an impact assessment community do not contribute to this, one runs the risk of an opportunity-driven 2030 agenda where accountability conveniently is left aside. In conclusion, I would like to again thank the IAIA for honoring the Danish Institute with this reward. It makes us proud, and it makes me very proud. This recognition really belongs to the DIHI team. A couple of them have joined us here today. Tulika and Nora, I can't see you, but you're out there. But whether the team is actually giving training courses, interviewing workers at palm oil plantations in Indonesia, or advising the Ministry of Mining in Niger, they are constantly pushing for the human rights impact agenda. And they are inspiring people around them, and they're inspiring me on a daily basis. So on behalf of the Danish Institute for Human Rights, I thank you very much.
The next item on our program is the Charlie Wolf Memorial Lecture, and we're very pleased to have Charlie Wolf's son, Deo, here, and we invite him up to introduce the speaker for the Charlie Wolf Memorial Lecture. Deo?
Good evening, everyone. My name is Deo Gracias, but you can call me Deo. And as Sean said, I am an adopted son of our beloved Charlie Wolf. Need a picture. To your left, Nancy Wolf is wife of our beloved Charlie Wolf. In the middle is me. This picture was taken in November 2014 at an event at one of the universities. These two are truly my immortal beloved, my moral beacons. Charlie Wolf is one of the founding fathers of IAIA. I first met our beloved Charlie Wolf and Nancy Wolf in August 1994 through one of Charlie's former students, Chukwu Birth from Nigeria, when Charlie was teaching at Brown University. Nancy and Charlie met when Nancy had just finished at Rhode Island School of Design, an amazing artist. And Charlie graduated from Princeton University, where he earned a PhD in sociology, and then took off to teach at Brown. He was really a true sociologist. When I met them, I was homeless in Central Park in New York City, carrying tragedies like luggage from the trauma of war in Burundi and in Rwanda in the 90s. I learned English from Charlie and Nancy. I didn't speak a word of English. I was about to give up on my life. But they brought me back to life. Not only they did that, but brought my dream of childhood to life. And they told me, you are in a country where there's a second chance, and most importantly, we are here and we love you. And I received pure, unconditional love from people who had nothing in common with me but our humanity. Thank you. We had so much fun with the words, particularly at dinner table. Nancy liked to speak so fast, and Charlie, being this reformed academic, as he used to call himself, he was very slow. He was such a great listener. He would look at me, read my mind. I had a lot to say, but I couldn't say a word. And what really gave me hope that I would be able to speak sometime English was when I would ask a word, the meaning of word. Charlie would tell me, Nancy would say, no, that's not what it is. And these were American parents, citizens. And they would debate. Charlie would go into his corner and would grab a dictionary of sociology. And then we'd read the word, the meaning. Nancy would get up, would go into her studio and bring another dictionary. We'll read and the debate will start. And then I said to myself, I will be able to do it if these two disagree on the meaning of the word. And Charlie often gave up, and she would look at me and she said, you know, when we got engaged, Nancy called me and opened her closet and told me, do you see that? These were prizes that Nancy received debating, and she was always at the top. So I just had such a wonderful time, and that was truly the beginning of my healing from the trauma of war. I didn't give up. They didn't give up on me. When I asked for some advice. Charlie had this sense of humor. He would ask me, how do you get to Carnegie Hall? Those who may not know that, it's a musical, wonderful place in New York City. I didn't understand what he was talking about. And then he would look at me, practice, practice, practice. And I was weakly, I was weak, I was sick, I was not myself. And all the time would say, if you want to be back to life and be healthy, eat your veggies. So all these things that I learned from him really gave me so much hope. At home, he had principles, Nancy had principles, had rules. For example, there is a friend of ours who came to visit us, and he started complaining about an unfriendly friend, and Charlie looked at him and said, here in his home, we have a rule, we speak ill of no one. That was the end of the conversation. And we started a new topic. Not only I wouldn't be standing in front of you, but also I will be dead. It's not an exaggeration without the love, the care, the compassion of Charlie and Nancy Wolf. They walked me through life, back to college, where I graduated at Columbia University and went to grad school, medical school. And I started an organization called Village Health Works, which is an organization that is helping poor people in Burundi. I do know that without this organization, so many hundreds of people who are alive today will be dead. When they say, if you save a life, that life can save a family, that life can save a village, that life can save a country, they are right. Burundi owes a lot to Charlie and Nancy Wolf. Brave, faithful, humble, compassionate people. Charlie, as Nancy used to call him, an eternal optimist. Even during his last hour, Charlie didn't give up on hope. And so that is the co-founding father of the IAIA. He loved IAIA. He took IAIA in his heart. And I am honored to be here with you to follow his footsteps with my wife, Catherine, who is here. Thank you very much. Now, it's my greatest honor to be introducing to you one of the most inspiring human beings, Charlotte McLean Lapo. She's the Global Disability Advisor for the World Bank Group. Her appointment comes at a time when the World Bank Group is working to mainstream disability in development under its twin goals to end poverty and promote shared prosperity. As a disability advisor, Charlotte focuses on working with and supporting operation teams across the institution to ensure that bank policies, programs, projects take people with disabilities into consideration. Her responsibilities include leading the production of analytical products, analyzing and articulating bank policies on disability and development, advising on the role that the bank should play, such as establishing criteria and operational results, framework for monitoring the outcomes of the bank's disability work. As a well-respected human rights lawyer in disability and child rights. Charlotte returned to the World Bank after serving 4 years at the USAID as the Senior Coordinator for Disability and Inclusive Development. Appointed by US President Barack Obama in 2011, she led USAID's work on disability inclusive development, from developing policies in the country strategies to technical assistance for program implementation. Prior to this, she worked as a senior operation officer at the bank to integrate disability inclusive development into operations in East Asia, Pacific, and African regions. Early in her career, she was appointed by President Nelson Mandela as a commissioner to the South African Human Rights Commission, focusing on social and economic rights, disability rights, and child rights. From 1996 to 1998, she also served as one of the first cohort of child protection officers for UNICEF. Charlotte holds a law degree in international law and administration from the University of Warsaw, Poland, and the Cornell Law School. She lives in Washington, D.C. Please, let's give Charlotte a warm welcome.
Thank you very much, Deo. And ladies and gentlemen, welcome to eThekwini. Welcome to Durban. Welcome to the Zulu Kingdom. Welcome to the land of 1,000 hills. And welcome to KwaZulu-Natal. It is so important that the celebration of Charlie Wolf, the man that made this all possible, happens here in Durban today. It's particularly pertinent given Durban's intricate history of resilience and its continuous fight for social justice, for environmental justice, and for economic freedom. Population-wise, KwaZulu-Natal is the largest province in South Africa. Its people are as diverse as they are resilient. Their resilience dates back many, many years. Durban stands out as a crucible that raised multiple leaders. And let me just share with you some of those leaders and the things that they've done. In 1879, the victory of the army of King Qachayo Kampande of the Battle of Isandlwane became the foundation of many other struggles of justice that followed on. Chief Mbambata continued this courageous struggle with a fight for justice. There were many men and women that followed this path to fight the ugliness of apartheid and end oppression and discrimination. These included the first founding president of the African National Congress, John Langa Lalibele Dube, who in 1887 studied at Oberlin College in the United States. On his return to Natal, he established the Natal Native Congress. Over the years, he took on the fight to improve the status of Black women, especially those involved in the domestic work sector. Then there was Mahatma Gandhi, an Indian lawyer who in 1893 arrived to Durban. He spent 21 of his formative years in this part of the world. During his time here, he fought for legal concessions for Indians and developed his philosophy of Satyagraha. Other great struggles in this province have been those of the workers. Over the years, Durbanites, irrespective of their color, have powerfully voiced the grievances of migrant workers on the docks, on the railways, and in local industries. This struggle continues today with teachers, bus drivers, and other workers pushing and insisting that workers have rights. Another great leader from this land was Nkosi Albert Lithuli, who in 1960 was awarded the Nobel Peace Prize for his role as a leader of millions of Africans in the nonviolent struggle against apartheid. Today, ladies and gentlemen, we gather in this beautiful conference center that carries his name. Then there was the indomitable Victoria Mxenge, a trained nurse who went on to become a ferocious civil rights lawyer. She was brutally killed by the apartheid regime in front of her children. She was killed for her role in instructing some of the country's top advocates in treason trials and representing the families of the victims of the Matola raid and the Lesotho raid. It should be noted that it was no coincidence that President Nelson Mandela cast his first vote right here in Durban. This year marks the centenary of Nelson Mandela. Notwithstanding these incredible men and women and the great strides that Durban and its surrounding areas have made, there remain past and present challenges. Durban and its surrounding areas witnessed untold violence between 1990 and 1994. And it's particularly concerning to read reports of new political killings. In Durban, the reality is that economic opportunities remain elusive for far too many. Yesterday, Stats SA released its quarterly labor force survey for the country, which reports that the official unemployment rate remains unchanged at 26.7%. These high figures stand to potentially derail social and economic stability. The report goes on to indicate that KwaZulu-Natal's unemployment rates are down slightly by 1.8 percentage point, but remain very high in terms of unemployment amongst the youth. Durban and KwaZulu-Natal continue to report high levels of inequality and most recently instances of religious intolerance. The inequality in Durban is most notable in the spatial concentration of poor and working class who continue to be largely marginalized. For instance, in most low-income housing is located on the periphery of the city, and residents of these areas typically experience poor access to centers of employment, difficulties in terms of accessing water, often substandard education, limited access to social amenities, and often social marginalization. Many of these communities experience high levels of crime and extremely high levels of gender-based violence. So in order for us to address the imbalances in the power relations in Durban, we need to strengthen institutions. We need to build the capabilities of people in cities, to address the inequalities in housing and human settlements, and to ensure that transportation and mobility is accessible and more reliable for all. Of course, there are many more challenges, but this tells us that our work is not done. It tells us that as professionals who work on impact assessments, it is so important, so very important to go beyond the surface. It is important for us to drill down, to unearth hidden dimensions of disadvantage, and really begin to understand exclusion. A good social assessment would tell you that Durban is still a city in transition. Like most South African metros, Durban still needs to unwind the spatial aspects of apartheid. We know that spatial transformation is crucial for cities to become smart cities, to become more productive cities, to become inclusive cities, and to become sustainable cities. We understand that there are many challenges in making Durban an inclusive city, for making it a well-governed city, a city that innovates, a city that welcomes inclusive tourism, and a city that creates jobs, and of course, a city that's green and sustainable. These challenges is what we set out to address in our everyday work. And these challenges include providing guidance to development that allows for growth while assessing impacts, protecting sensitive natural areas, promoting inclusive and accessible urban design, and ensuring modern-day infrastructure absorbs growth while mitigating the impact of new developments. And always, always, always putting people at the center of development. The inseparable linkages of the environment and its people cannot be ignored, nor should they, because what is a city without its people, without its culture? And this brings me to the people of Durban. In Durban, you have a colorful human tapestry made up of Africans, whites, Indians, and coloreds. It is often said that Durban has the largest population, largest Indian population outside of India. The majority of Indian South Africans are descendants of indentured workers brought to Natal between 1860 and 1911. They were brought here to develop the sugar industry, and like many urban cities, Durban has continued to attract migrants from rural parts of South Africa and further afield. Today, the human quilt of Durban is stitching in new immigrants. Immigrants from Africa, immigrants from Nigeria, from Somalia, all of whom call Durban home. They bring to the city a new dimension of cultural diversity and of overlapping identities. But sadly, in some instances, their presence has triggered the ugliness of xenophobia. The diversity of Durban's people has undoubtedly influenced its culture and its cuisine. Only in Durban will you experience the rich Zulu culture and heritage. Only in Durban will you see Zulu Indian dance troupes. Only in Durban will you eat a bunny chow, a delectable piece of hollowed out bread stuffed with curry. The origins of this distinctive Durban street food abound, but I really would recommend that you grab one before you leave. Another aspect of Durban's trending value, both continentally and globally, is its infectious new genre of music called gqom. Data. Economically, Durban prides itself in being the busiest port in Africa. KZN's proximity to Mozambique, Eswatini, and the interior of South Africa makes it attractive to business. KZN is also the home to a vast treasure trove of pristine beaches, some of the best surfs in the world, I'm told. 2 UNESCO World Heritage Sites sit right here in this province. And pretty much, Durban enjoys fabulous weather all year long. Durban is clearly a tourist destination for many, but we have to insist that the tourism is sustainable, inclusive, and responsible. Finally, while I never met or never had the pleasure to meet Charlie Wolf, I'm sure he would have been extremely proud of how Durban continues to be the touchstone of fearless leaders, transformational practitioners, and brilliant thinkers. I'm sure he would be impressed with the large number of participants attending this conference from the African continent, as well as many from across the globe. Wherever we've come from, we've come here because we're all committed to a shared vision to build a more inclusive and sustainable world, and in so doing, ensuring that we leave no one behind and protect our environment in the process. Thank you.
Many thanks, Charlotte. I'm now honored to introduce our keynote speaker, retired Constitutional Court Judge Albie Sachs. And all I really want to say about Judge Albie is that at the age of 6 during World War II, he received a card from his father expressing the wish that he would grow up to be a soldier in the fight for liberation. And it was a wish that he gave expression to in a career in human rights activism and a life dedicated to freeing our country from apartheid and maintaining justice in democratic South Africa. It is thus with great pleasure that I introduce Judge Albie today as our keynote speaker with a presentation entitled, "Do You Have to Be White to Be Green?" Judge Albie.
I should mention, I don't know if it's a confession or a mention, I come from Cape Town. And there's a friendly rivalry between Cape Town and Durban, which is usually very positive. And in that spirit, I'm going to say everything I've heard about Durban from these speakers is true. Is true. We have a number of fabulous cities in this country, and we have a number of fabulous cities that still remain deeply divided with lots of pain. And Durban and Cape Town share that in common, the glory, the beauty, and also the pain. I asked the question, do you have to be white to be green, for the first time in 1990. And I'm going to give you the answer I gave then and why I posed that question, and I'll end with how I feel in 2018 on that particular question. I'd just returned from, it was 23 years, 8 months, 3 weeks, 2 days and a few hours exile to South Africa. Excited to be back. The prisoners were coming off Robben Island, the exiles were coming back, the people working the underground were now overground. And our heads are filled with bringing down the system of apartheid that we fought so hard against. And I get a request from a small group in Cape Town who were in touch with somebody called Ushi. If there's anybody here from Germany that would know Ushi, she was from the Green Party. And she got into the Bundestag afterwards. And the question was, would I speak as an anti-apartheid activist, an ANC member, on the question of environment? Environment? We're fighting racism. We're fighting colonialism, domination. What's this environment thing? And I still remember the first time I heard the term was we'd just come back from a big march in London during my exile against the American troops being in Vietnam. And we're angry about that. And someone says, you people are barking up the wrong tree. The real issue in the world is the world. We were very dismissive. You interested in trees, in rivers? We're interested in people. You are just finding this as an excuse to get away from the hard, tough problems of oppression, exploitation, of struggle. But something that he said remained lodged in my mind. And I'm finding now, many years later, that was in the 70s, a lot of people I admired very much were very involved in this environmental thing. And we had been unidirectional, focused. We had to be. Apartheid, anti-apartheid, bringing down that system. Okay, let me go to this little conference in Cape Town. I might learn something. And then I'm thinking, for South Africans, many South Africans are wondering, a big campaigns to save the white rhino. Great worries that a butterfly in the Eastern Cape is going to become extinct. What does that mean to the poor people living in the townships, to the people in jail? It seemed so remote. And I'm thinking, is this environment thing a white thing? For people who are living in beautiful homes, their personal environments are marvelous. They have lawns and sprinklers and gardeners. And they're worried about the national parks and the rhinoceros. Is that where the theme of saving the environment belongs? Is it a white thing? Is it one of those things that will actually divide South Africans? We're fighting for freedom, for liberation, for social advancement, and they're fighting for parks. And then I push myself a little bit. And I think, for South African people, the earth, the land, the soil, it's so meaningful. This huge, biggest political issue in South Africa today now is around the issue of expropriation of land without compensation to give the land back, get the land back for people who are dispossessed. My boy, Africa, Africa come back. It's not just Africa in an abstract state sense. It's Africa as soil, place of growth, place where your ancestors are buried, your connection with the earth, your dignity. And in African culture, the rivers have almost a spiritual quality. You read about a rock, a cave, a tree. The connection with the earth is more profound, is much deeper than it is amongst the whites. I think of Afrikaners amongst the whites. When the Anglo-Boer War comes to an end, the concentration camps, their farms have been scorched earth by the British, destroyed. The people are concentrated into camps. That's the women and the children, so that the Boer commandos can't get any support. They're torn from the land. Concentration camps then invented by the British as part of conquest. And when you read Afrikaans literature, some of the most poignant literature from the 20s and 30s, it's about the veld. It's about the white ant. It's Kees van die Kalahari, the baboon. It's at Oerwoud en Vlakte, the lion family. And it's a kingdom that's been lost. It's people who dispossessed, who feel uncomfortable in the towns and the cities where the British money, control, capital dominates. And there's a longing, a yearning, a connection with the earth that's very, very profound. I struggle a little bit with us English speakers. And yet there is a romantic connection with the land. Jock of the Bushveld was such a favorite book about a dog. It was a pretty racist dog, as it happened, and a very anti-Afrikaner dog, as it happened. But that sense of the veld, that thing in people's eyes. And I feel, you know, this earth, this territory, this land called South Africa has a meaning for all of us. And instead of protection of the land and the animals and the things that are growing there being a source of separation and division, it actually can be a unifying feature. It can bring out our humanity, our common humanity at a level that's much deeper and more profound than humanity you express simply supporting political programs. So I say you don't have to be white to be green. And I'm feeling very satisfied with myself. Oh, I've made a breakthrough and it's something positive and we can get more allies for change and so on. And then I get the broadside. Who's this Albie Sachs who knows nothing about environmental issues, thinking all we're interested in is protecting nature reserves and animals? These aren't the real issues. The real issues are depleting the resources of the earth, polluting the atmosphere. And he really gives it to me. We used to be more polemical in those days. You took no prisoners, no quarter, bah, 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 bah. So that wipes out all the smugness. He was absolutely right. But I haven't let go of the animals. And this feeling of those nature reserves, they're not bad in themselves. What was bad was African people were moved out to make way for the animals. That was bad and unacceptable. Skukuza means the broom, the person who swept them out to create something for the whites to go. What's bad is the local people weren't benefiting from the tourism. Their children weren't going to see the animals and enjoy them like we were. That had to be changed. And we want butterflies, and we want the rhinoceros, because that belongs to all humanity after we're gone. It's something very precious. It's a kind of world and universe we want to live in. We don't have to give up on that, but we don't focus just on that. Fast forward to 2002. Meanwhile, by the way, this environment thing is registering in my head. So when it comes to crafting our new constitution, wow, we've got a chance. We can write our constitution. Whose hand goes up? Environment. Albie Sachs. Environment, environment, environment. And there was no opposition to it. I wouldn't say we had a big movement then pushing for it, but there was no opposition to it, so it got in. And once it's in, it sticks. And once it's there, it grows from the interim constitution to the final constitution. And I hope the organizers of the conference will make a copy available. We were the first country in the world to have environmental protection in our constitution. Not simply as a good thing, but as a fundamental right, a fundamental right, a fundamental right. 2002, the Earth Summit, held in Johannesburg. Not famous like the Rio, but important. And the Environmental Protection Unit of the UN, based in Kenya, have an idea. They can have a conference of judges in Johannesburg. I think they're always looking for moments, occasions, to be able to spread the good word. And we are asked, can we, in the Constitutional Court now, I'm a Constitutional Court judge, can we organize a seminar for judges on sustainable development? My colleagues say, what? I say, sustainable development. At least I could pronounce it. And I had a vague idea what it was about. I didn't really know. But we're ready. And judges, you have a case on internal combustion engine, and you spend a weekend, and you know on Monday what it is. So sustainable development, we're reading up on it. And we had about 30, 40 judges from all over Africa. And we take them to what was then a big hole in the ground where we're building our new constitutional court. And we've chosen that site very, very carefully. It's the site of the old Fort Prison in Johannesburg. We say with a very dubious pride, we South Africans have the only prison in the world where both Gandhi and Mandela were locked up. Nobody else can make that claim, and that's where we built our court. It's defending now our new constitution. And I asked my old friend, Indris Naidu, if he will tell us the story of his grandfather who was in prison with Gandhi, in that prison where the court is now being built. And all the judges are there, and Gandhi's name was mentioned earlier. And he tells us the story, 1914, Gandhi's in jail with Indus's grandfather, and the white warders tell the Indian prisoners to wear the cap that the black African prisoners had to wear to make them look like children. And Mr. Naidu says, no, 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 I'm not going to wear it. They want to humiliate us. And Gandhi says, no. If we want to understand what life is like for the hardest pressed people in our country, we must experience life as they do. We will wear that cap, and we will wear it with pride. And when Gandhi went back to India, he took that cap with him. And the famous Gandhi cap that became the symbol of the Indian independence movement was a cap that he'd worn with pride, because African prisoners were forced to wear that cap in the prison on the site where our constitutional court is today. I don't know, is there anybody from India here today? Okay, I hope you take that story back with you, because it's not well known in India, and it's a beautiful connection between our two countries. It was Professor Veera Mantri from Sri Lanka, who in fact was the great person to open our eyes. And we had to expand our whole vision of law. And he introduced us to concepts of, you had to look at future generations. Unborn people cases could be brought in their name, expanding into the future. Concepts of fiduciary responsibility for land. Not just you own the land, you can do what you like, but you have a responsibility. Concepts of trans-frontiers. You can't have an environment divided with immigration officials demanding how the air should flow and how the rivers should run and how the wind should blow. A whole range of things. And it made it clear to us that law can't be compartmentalized and boxed up. When human needs are profound and new issues come onto the agenda, you have to use your imagination to expand. And when I come to the end, I'll come back to the importance, I believe, of his approach. Our court building, if I was a Johannesburg patriot, and I am a Johannesburg patriot as well, if you go to Johannesburg, make a point of visiting the Constitutional Court building. Because amongst other things, it's that building that's so emotional, like justice under a tree, open, transparent, beautiful, wonderful artwork. But the part I enjoy most when I take people on a tour is I'm wearing a shirt like this, and I stand over an air vent, and I say, if there's anybody in the tour group who's blonde, wearing a skirt, please come here. It's not sexist. It's the Marilyn Monroe effect. Because the cool air comes from down below, and it blows the skirt. And that's our passive cooling system. This is 2004. We have passive cooling in that court. The cool night air gets trapped in rocks in the day and comes into the building. And it's not only saving on non-renewable energy, it gives a beautiful feel. The air is natural. It's not dependent on refrigeration. It means you can have balconies, you can open windows, and it's escaping from that scientifically controlled, timeless, constant lighting kind of effect you get in most modern buildings. It humanizes that whole building. And for me, in a sense, that's a metaphor for what the people involved in the worldwide environmental movement do. It's more than just protection against disease and calamity. It's humanizing us. It's emphasizing our interdependence. I'm just going to mention briefly two cases, I won't go into them, that were relevant, but by and large, we weren't a very activist court on environmental matters. They didn't come to us. But the one indirectly, Mrs. Grootboom, for me, that dealt with social and economic rights, the rights of access to housing, people sleeping out in the open, they'd been evicted, and we decided under our constitution, the state a duty to make emergency shelter provision available for them. But what was important about that case is it centered on Mrs. Grootboom, the poor. The focus is on the poor. And until then, people were blaming the poor for our environmental problems. The poor have too many children. The poor chop down the trees, blaming the poor. And I'm thinking, she is the great recycler, the great scavengers. The rich throw away their stuff. After hardly using it, the poor pick up the little pieces and make a house and live there. And our focus has to be on the Mrs. Grootbooms when we think of development. And it means you can't exclude the need for development. You need industry, you need electricity. She needs electricity. In those days, we didn't have non-renewable energy except through water. So then it meant we needed coal, but it meant then we had to scrub the coal. And we had to find ways of balancing out all these different interests, and that's where our focus should be. One of my last cases on the court, it's called the BioWatch case. It made me a hero for 10 minutes. In all the human rights activity, civil society groups, it dealt simply with the question of costs in a case. If you litigate and you lose the case, normally in South African law, in a civil case, if you lose the case, you are ordered to pay the costs of the other side. And BioWatch were ordered to pay costs to Monsanto because they'd asked for lots of information about genetically modified seeds. They got some of the answers, some of it the judge felt they were going too far. He ordered costs against them. It would have destroyed civil society organizations in this country. People wouldn't give them money if the money's going to pay costs. They wouldn't have gone to court. And we said, the court, I'm speaking for the whole court now unanimously, the civil society groups, including those fighting for the environment, play a huge role in upholding the Constitution. And we as a court must encourage them to come to court to claim their rights. And if cost awards like this are going to deter them and chill them from doing that, that is anti-constitutional. And so the BioWatch case is now held up as an example in many, many other areas of Finally, what's my position today on the question, do you have to be white to be green? The whitest white person I know, he's even got hair that's pretty white, yellowish white. The president of a certain country, I'm not going to mention which, he's not green. He's white and he's not green. He's anti-green. So being white is no indication of being green. And more than that, he's tearing down measures included for his country, for the world, by a president who was black. And I think of this recent international conference, was it in Paris last year? It's so unfortunate that Edna Molewa, the minister, couldn't be with us today, but she has to give priority in Parliament. I was told she did a brilliant job there. I felt so proud when I read that. I felt so proud. Can I ask for a round of applause in her absence? I felt proud that it was an African country that was looking for solutions, using all our diplomatic experience in dealing with irreconcilable issues. She'd made a major contribution, I heard. But it's also China made a huge contribution. Last time I looked at Chinese, they weren't white. It was a worldwide coming together. And that was part of its strength. And that was part of why it was so important. And to me, that fits in, and I'll conclude with this, a very deep South African philosophical, cultural, almost spiritual concept, Ubuntu. I am a person because you're a person. I can't separate my humanity from acknowledging your humanity. To me, environmental law and principles represent Ubuntu writ large internationally, human interdependence. And as I said before, it goes beyond simply protection and the right to breathe clean air and the right not to be subjected to forms of toxic atmospheric things around you and clean water. Of course, those things are important. And also the right to look at animals and to feel you're part of this huge variety of thing called nature, earth rights. It's fantastic. But it's more than that. It's what helps to humanize human beings, to be less greedy, to be more interconnected, to be more loving and concerned to each other, to future generations, not to be so egotistical, not to think carrying a gun, being powerful, creating tall buildings is it. There's a much deeper it. It's the it of being a human being, of feeling responsibility, of feeling connection, of being in touch with others. And what was so marvelous for me, and I think for everybody in this room and for most of humanity, is through the coming together of humanity in relation to climate change and saying, number one, isn't the right to make money as quickly as you can, as robustly and aggressively as you can. That's not item number one. Item number one is to be a human being. That was what was being celebrated. That's why it was so important. And that's why I feel absolutely, absolutely, you don't have to be white, you don't have to be black, you don't have to be brown, you don't have to be any color at all. You just have to be a human being to be involved with the environment. Thank you.
Spare a thought for me having to follow that. Folks, we've run late, for which I apologize, but I'm sure you all agree that it's been a wonderful, wonderful opening to this conference, such powerful messages from all our speakers, and I'm sure you'll share with me in thanking all of them once again for getting this conference off to the perfect start. So apologies that we've eaten into your tea time. The rest of the program will stick strictly to the schedule as stated. And other than that, we'd just like to wish you a very enjoyable next 4 days and a process of reflecting on some of the incredibly powerful messages that we've had at the start of this wonderful opportunity for us all. Thank you.
Locked us up, peaches, we're locked inside this suit. Your bananas get thrown at me and mine get thrown at you. Every night we fuss and fight like Arabs and like Jews. I guess love is always just. Love is monkey see and monkey do. That's all it is, peaches. Love is monkey see and monkey do. Would I lie to you? Love is monkey see and monkey do. That's all it is, peaches. Love is monkey see and monkey do. Do, do, do. Do you want my love, peaches? Do you want my rage? Or do you merely like to see me shake my cage? Your papayas get thrown at me and mine get thrown at you. I guess love is always just. Love is monkey see and monkey do. That's all it is, peaches. Love is monkey see and monkey do. Would I lie to you? Love is monkey see and monkey do. That's all it is, peaches. Love is monkey see and monkey do. Then you'll learn the truth, peaches. 1 and 1 ain't 2. 1 and 1 is 1, and love is monkey see and monkey do. That's all it is, peaches. Love is monkey see and monkey do. Would I lie to you? Love is monkey see and monkey do. That's all it is, peaches. Love is monkey see and monkey do. That's all it is, peaches.